As I peruse the news, we obviously see that Panama Canal has been brought up once or twice by the president, and he has basically said he's thinking of retaking it. I don't believe this is an empty threat. I believe this is something that should be taken quite seriously, and I believe it's part of a much larger strategy. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll get into it here. The Panama Canal is of vital interest to the United States. Vital interest. It's what made us a two-ocean navy in World War II. So much cargo, commerce goes through it from the United States, from one coast to another around the world, that it is a strategic and important place for us. He brings up the fact that we built it. We did. But there were treaty implications that President Carter signed, and we agreed to, and were implemented by President Clinton. I was alive during that. I was also alive during the invasion of Panama, where the United States invaded Panama to capture Manuel Noriega. And we very well may have to do it again. That war saw the first use of stealth technology in combat. Well, this will see similar technologies used, but the Panamanian Defense Forces are very small. It'll be just like it was prior, but we will face mass protests. But I do think this is something that needs to be taken quite seriously. Quite seriously. I believe this is part of his re-implementation of the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine, briefly, is no power outside the Western Hemisphere will have undue influence and will not base forces in the Western Hemisphere. That's the long and short of it. And I believe Trump is re-implementing it and tweaking it a little bit, making it his own. So what would we be doing in Panama? This is a map of the 1977 Panama Canal Zone. Now, I know it's very difficult to see here. I will, of course, link it. But what you're seeing are U.S. forts, bases, Air Force bases, and training facilities. Joint Panamanian Defense Force and U.S. military. I don't believe we would enjoy Panamanian Defense Force cooperation. But this is the general area that we'd be going back after. This is a little bit... sorry, not that map. This map. It's a little bit clearer. As you can see, all the strategic locations held by United States military would be advantageous for us. Very advantageous for us. And strategically, on an international level, this makes a lot of sense. Because what we're seeing right now is the expansion of the Chinese into the Western Hemisphere. This is just a cutout map, generally, of completed ports, port projects, port near military bases map. This is actually a very, very good article, and of course I will be linking it. Diálogo Americas. As you can see, there is a lot of focus around the Panama Canal. If the Chinese were to do what they have done in other parts of the world, specifically Djibouti, and I'm going to bring up a picture of that. A lot of people don't know this, but China does have overseas military bases. One of them is in the country of Djibouti, where they have a substantial garrison. And they also have warships and aircraft and helicopters. Their aircraft. But this is a picture of their base in Djibouti. Chinese forces. What would our reaction be if the Chinese said that they were going to do something similar in the Western Hemisphere? I think I know what President Trump's reaction would be. I think I know what it is right off the bat. That's unacceptable. We will not allow it. That violates the Monroe Doctrine and the Trump Doctrine. I think we can call it the Monroe-Trump Doctrine. And Panama, I think, is vitally important to the new Trump-Monroe Doctrine. This map showing U.S. military facilities. This one as well. And again, I'm going to link everything you see here. Would be key in preventing any Chinese base from being completed in the Western Hemisphere, because they've already got these holdings here. This is actually a very good article, like I said prior. I will be linking it. It's incredibly good. It goes through a lot of specifics and a lot of why. And a lot of the whys are exactly why the Trump-Monroe Doctrine will be implemented. It's almost a foregone conclusion. If I'm Panama, I'm sitting back and I'm waiting. There's another reason. And I think the president didn't bring this up, but I think this is equally important. Panama is home to the Darien Gap. The Darien Gap is where most of the migrants that are coming from South America, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, they're crossing here. As you can see, here is Panama City. Panama City is along that corridor of the canal, which contains would contain U.S. military facilities. The president could simply say that's our first line of defense. The Darien Gap, migrant route of last resort. This article, of course, will be linked, goes through how the Darien Gap, almost 250,000 people, mostly from Venezuela, navigated the Darien Gap on their way through South America, up through Mexico, and across our open border. What better way to intercept large groups of migrants than as far away from our home border as possible? Intercept them there. As many as you can. Buffers along the way. I think the president could absolutely use this as a reason, as a second reason for retaking of the Panama Canal. This is why I think this isn't just an idle threat. I think this is a couple of steps in line of the new Trump-Monroe Doctrine. I really do believe that that is a thing that we are going to be hearing a lot about in the near future. The Monroe Doctrine. But I'm going to call it the Trump-Monroe Doctrine because I think it's going to be strengthened. It's going to be implemented with a lot more teeth. With a lot more teeth than prior. The Western Hemisphere is closed for business when it comes to other nations thinking they can put their military or commercial interests that outweigh ours in our hemisphere. It doesn't work that way. It hasn't worked that way traditionally. That's why there is a Monroe Doctrine. That's why we had the Panama Canal. I think Mexico, the Panama Canal, and a few others are in line for some changes. Especially if the president is able to get his movement to be in charge past the 4 years. I don't mean him personally. I mean the movement. MAGA. J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy. Then I think there's going to be some changes. The Trump-Monroe Doctrine will have some serious teeth. And a lot of countries won't like it. Just another match on the fire. I do appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate you, and I thank you.